Good evening everyone, this is going to be my full tutorial for how to play Kuma and Panda in Tekken 7. Now before we start the guide, I need to give a huge shout out to one of my viewers, Dennis Kaimak. Thank you so much for your help. Dennis sent me a long email a while ago where he had basically completed a research package on Kuma and Panda already, and he gave me a lot of pointers on useful moves and frame data and so on, and it ended up cutting down my research time on the character by as much as 2 hours. So that was really nice of you, man. It was really helpful, and I hope that the tutorial ends up being what you hoped for. But we're just going to jump into the abandoned temple stage here and talk a little bit about these characters initially, and then start showing you some moves. Kuma and Panda are considered to be some of the lower tier characters in the game right now, but if I'm completely honest, I actually think that they are, out of the low tier characters, probably the strongest. And I think these characters are definitely very viable. Extremely viable if you're playing casually, extremely viable if you're playing online, and I think they might actually have a lot of unexplored potential when it comes to high level competitive play. It's just the case that they're kind of underexplored characters that don't see a whole lot of usage, and so I think that they are heavily underestimated. And like I said, out of the low tier characters in the game, I actually think that these might be the best ones. Although I've said that about a lot of characters. But okay, let's talk a little bit about the unique characteristics of the character. So first of all, Kuma is one of these characters who is very large, meaning that he has limited movement. Well, he doesn't really have limited movement, but basically even after moving, because his hitbox occupies a large amount of space, he might not be as evasive as he might like to. And that's something that he shares with Gigas and Jack. And it's just a defining characteristic of those characters. But I say this when I talk about large characters, this is not as big of a disadvantage as a lot of people think. I mean, you can look at Jack, for example. He's not exactly a non-viable character in competitive play, as you probably know. It's more an issue of people who really like to be mobile, and then they end up playing a large character. It feels odd and it feels off, but as long as it's something that you can get used to, it's not gonna bother you all that much, and it's not going to make that much of a difference. Other things that are unique about Kuma is that he has a little bit of unorthodox frame data going on. He has a lot of weird moves that sort of spawn off of Jack, but apart from that, this is probably the most solid version of the character that we've ever seen in Tekken. I think he's actually stronger than he's ever been. He has a pretty cool, strong combo package. Something that I learned making this tutorial is that I think that both his block punishment and his wall game are actually fantastic. So we're going to talk a little bit about those things later on as well. But for now, as we usually do, let's start off with some block punishment. So we're going to start off with standing, then do while standing, and then I'm going to go into the moveset itself. So for standing 10 frames, you've got 2-1. This is just a normal 2-hit jab string. Gives you 21 damage. It's got decent range. It's not super long, but it's definitely better than something like Miguel, who I play. And I actually think that this is average to slightly above average for like a 10-frame block punisher. It's not bad at all, and it's basically all you have. So it's what you're going to end up using for 10 frames. And then for 12 frames, you've got down back 1-2. This is a little bit of a unique one. It's a 12-frame block punisher, and it does 34 damage. If you have a look at Paul here, you can see that he actually recovers very slowly, and he actually recovers from full crouch. So when you hit with this move, you establish a huge advantage. I could imagine this being extremely useful if you go straight into like a throw or something. You can create a very powerful mix-up after hitting with this move. And I think that this move is actually a big sort of skill divide between people who are going to be very successful with Kuma and people who aren't, because it's the case that a lot of people, when they block punish, they either use their 10-frame block punisher or they try and launch punish, because you need to know a lot of specific frame data in between 10 and 15 to successfully punish with something like a 12-frame. But if you know frame data and you know a lot of moves that are going to be minus 12 to 14, which is where you would use this, and you're able to successfully apply this block punisher, you're going to get a lot of damage. This is a fantastic block punisher, and I think you should train yourself to apply it properly. And this is obviously going to work on
most, if not all, hop kicks in the game. So this is your hop kick punisher as well. It's a very, very good move, and I really recommend that you familiarize yourself with it. But it's mainly a block punisher. Then for 13 you've got 4-2-1. This is another option that you can use for hop kicks. It's slightly less damage, but it gives a very powerful knockdown. And another great thing about this block punisher is that it's going to give you the wall splat. So it's going to give you a high damage wall splat, and then you can go into some really good damage. You can see right there 62 off of this simple one. So it's a reason that I mentioned earlier that I think Kuma is actually very dangerous at the wall. I think he's exceptionally dangerous at the wall, and this is one of the reasons, because you really can't get use any moves that are going to be minus 13 or more against him near the wall, because he's going to punish you for a whole lot of damage with this. I also like the range of this move. I think it's fantastic overall. So again, I was surprised when I learned more about the character, about how I actually think his block punishment is extremely powerful. I think it's very, very good. 10 frames being kind of generic, but then everything else being very good. And then for 15 frames you get your first launcher. You've got down 4-2-1. It's very similar to Miguel's version, but it's slightly faster, and I think it has slightly more range as well. You really can't underestimate the range of this move. If you see, it's going to hit way out here. So it's a very powerful whiff punisher as well. Fantastic move. It's got more range than you assume when you start using it, so becoming familiar with its range and where you can place it for block punishment is important, because you really don't want to whiff it, and you also don't want to get it blocked, obviously, because it's very punishable. But it's what you have for a launcher, and then you get the combo for good damage. And that's a good thing about Kuma. He has had like wonky combos in the past, but they've given him a complete package that really works in terms of his combos in this game, and I think that's good, because I think he deserves that. If you're going to bother to put a character in the game, I think you should actually flesh out their moveset and make them solid overall and viable. Okay, and then let's talk a little bit about while standing. He's got 4 for 11. This is very generic, except for the fact that Kuma's actually, sparks a normal hit. It's got above average damage. It does 20, which is very good. I actually think this is very good. It's got a little bit of stubby range because Kuma has short legs, but you can see it hits from like out here, so it doesn't have as bad range as you might think. And I have seen some very high level Kuma players, and I've played against some high level Kuma players who actually get a lot of mileage out of ducking and applying while standing to rack up damage. It's actually a very good strategy with him, because he's got a lot of like dangerous stuff from when he's down here. He's got all kinds of crazy stances, so he can stress people out by ducking, and then he can hit you with stuff like this, so it's good. And then while standing 1-1, this is for 13 frames. It is exceptionally powerful for a while standing 13 frame block punisher. It does 39 damage, which is obviously massive, and this is another move and another block punisher at 13 frames that is going to yield you a very high damage wall splat. So again, Kuma at the wall is a complete monster. I was really surprised when I learned how good the punishment and the wall package really made me reevaluate this character and think of him as a lot stronger than I had previously thought. This is 70 damage, so like basically anytime you block a low at the wall, you're going to be able to get this. While standing 1-1 is amazing. So yeah, if you are good at if you know a lot of frame data, and you know when you can get minus 13 from while standing, you're going to be able to get a lot of mileage out of this. And then for 15 you get a launcher. You get while standing 2, and that's very typical. A lot of characters have like a while standing 2 that's like a mid 15 frame launcher, and Kuma's is generic. I mean, he looks weird and he has like long arms and short legs and everything, but 15 frame block punisher right there, 15 frame while standing right there. It's not as unorthodox as you might think, and this is actually very solid. This all leads to good damage, so it's good. So that's going to be it for block punishment. That's what I'm going to introduce, but there are obviously other options out there, but this is I think more than enough to get you started. And like I said, apart from the 2-1 being slightly generic, average-ish, everything else is just very good. So
yeah, block punishment with Kuma is super strong, and because he has long range on moves, like you see the range on that is just massive, it's going to launch from way out here. I think playing defensively with Kuma can actually be very viable because you can look for whiffs and you can punish and you can rack up damage that way. And you don't have to play in the sort of mix-up based style that the character is sort of famous for. We're going to talk more about that later, of course. But that's it for punishment. Let's get into some of the important moves I want to talk about. The most important move that I learned about when I was exploring this character this time around is that my problem with the character, and the reason I haven't really played him all that much, is that I think that he lacks a generic good mid poke in, you know, something like a down forward 1 from a character like Miguel, Katarina, Shaheen, you know, Lars. A lot of characters have these moves. But I didn't know about the properties of down forward 4. It turns out down forward 4 is Kuma's version of a low poke like this, and it is amazingly good. With one exception, the one thing that is a little bit bad about it, as you can see, it doesn't have great range. So if I hit with it once, it's going to push them back long enough, and then I can't hit with it twice. And that's bad because sometimes you want to chain, you know, fast mid pokes together. But apart from the range, it's really, really good, and it's really interesting because it's a 12 frame mid, and 12 frame mids will usually be something like -9 on block. They will be very disadvantageous on block to make up for the fact that they are so exceptionally fast. Kuma is -4, which is not that bad at all, and he gets a very solid +7 when he gets a hit with this move. Basically meaning that this is Kuma's version of a down forward 1, but it's 1 frame faster. So you sacrifice range for a little bit of speed, which I think is a viable trade. And I think this move is great. Like, apart from the range, if you can learn to work with the range, this is going to be super important, especially as a defensive option for the character. And discovering this move made me really want to try and play the character more. Don't be surprised if you see some Kuma gameplay coming up from me soon, because learning this character, about this character, really made me want to play him, because I think there's a lot of cool stuff you can do here that most people don't know about simply. But it's like, you know about my love for down forward 1s. They are basically the linchpin of my entire playstyle. So this is a very important move if you're gonna play the way I like to play Tekken. But that's your most generic mid poke. It's down forward 4, and it's very good, but it's got limited range. And that's basically it for fast mids, unfortunately. He has a couple of other things we will talk about, though. We talked about 2-1 as a block punisher. You have 2 extensions on this move. You got 2-1-3, which is just a cheeky little low that you can tack on there. This is high mid-low. This is decent. You can use it to rack up some damage. The low is -13, which is not too bad. So this is decent. You can't be too obvious with it, however. And then if your opponent does try and duck, you can go balls to the wall and try and launch them with 2-1-2, which is a big mid launcher extension here that is punishable. And this move, if you know, the ones who are attentive among you will have noticed that this is lifted straight from Jack. It's one of those moves that, you know, Kuma has completely borrowed from Jack. Jack has the exact same string. Although Jack, as far as I know, does not have this low extension. So I think Kuma's version might actually be a little bit better because he can sort of mix up with it. But yeah, this is just like a generic jab string, and then you can tack on a low, but that's important. It should be mentioned, by the way, that your standing 2 is your main jab poke, because your 1 and your 1-2 do not come out at 10 frames. They're actually 11, and they're not very good overall, in my opinion. So you can sort of, this might be controversial, but you can sort of forget about 1-2 when it comes to Kuma, and just consider 2-1 your main jab string with the character, and consider 2 your main jab with the character. And that's very similar to Jack as well. Also similar to Jack is the fact that the 2-1 is actually not high but high mid, and that is super good and very important, because when you're jabbing with 2-hit strings like this, sometimes if your opponent was ducking, if they were in the middle of some sort of high crush move, the mid will actually save your life by going down and catching the mid, and that can be very, very important. So I really like that. Next, I want to mention the fact that you actually have a counter hit 4. Don't get too excited, however, because it is not 11 frames. It's a lot slower. It's 14, but it's still there. It's a fast counter hit high at 14 frames, and you can get a combo. So it's one of those counter hit force where you can actually get a real combo. I think what you need to do is something like this. Yeah, and then you can do whatever you want after that. So that's decent. You get pretty good damage off of it. And yeah, I like the option. Like I said, 14 frames, nothing exceptional about it, but it is one of those counter hit force that will actually give you a real combo. You don't have to do something like improvised and weird, so it's pretty solid. Next, I want to talk about a very, very important, very unique move that Kuma has access to. It's one of the strongest options that he has, and being able to apply this move effectively is going to completely destroy a lot of people, like anybody who's not prepared for it. It's forward 1-1-1. The reason forward 1-1-1 is so powerful is that this is actually a 10 frame counter hit high damage launcher. That's basically something that doesn't exist in Tekken. It's too powerful to exist on most characters. The 10 frame counter hit moves that we do see, forward 2 from Jack, back 1 from Feng and so on, usually give a guaranteed chunk for some damage, but they don't really give any wall carry, and they don't really give any combos. But with Kuma, you are able to get this completely like serious combo off of a 10 frame counter hit move, making this very, very powerful. I think you need to do like back to 1, yeah. So you can see that's 59 damage right there. You might be able to get more, maybe if you do something like this. Yeah, that's also 59. There might be better options, but that's real solid combo damage, and it's off a 10 frame counter hit move, so that's very, very important. So let's talk a little bit about the string. If the second hit of that string, so the move where he slaps down, the second hit right there hits, that this string is going to launch. So the second hit is kind of the launcher, but the second hit becomes guaranteed when the first hit is a counter hit, meaning that the first hit is a counter hit launcher, effectively. And so that's how the string works. You just need to be aware, however, that the second hit and the third hit are very punishable. They're both launch punishable, meaning that you don't want to throw this out and fish for counter hits if it turns out that your opponent is aware of this and knows how to launch punish it. But when you want to do like a quick get off me move, and when you're confident and you're trying to set up these counter hits, this is potentially extremely powerful, and at least a good damage, like I said. So very unique and very cool. You've probably, if you've played against good Kumas online, eaten this move, and it catches you off guard because you think you might be able to block somewhere in there, but if it's a counter hit, you're not, and you're going to get launched. Right now I have Paul set to second action all guard, so you can see what happens if it's not a counter hit. You can see that the first hit is going to hit, and then the opponent has the option of blocking the other 2 hits, and then they can punish for a lot of damage. So if you're wondering how to deal with this move as an opponent, you want to block and punish it. That's the best way, because as you can see, if you look at this third hit and if you look at the second hit as well, Kuma has a lot of recovery, whereas Paul doesn't have a lot of recovery at all. So that's important. Okay, moving on, let's talk about, we can talk about down forward 1-2. Down forward 1 from Kuma is not a standard down forward 1 whatsoever. It's 15 frames. Down forward 1-2 is a natural combo, however. So this is like a fast-ish mid-string. It's not as fast as it needed to be, and although it is sort of similar to Jack's version of this move, has an amazingly large and long-range hitbox that just occupies a lot of space, whereas Kuma really doesn't. This has limited range, but it's there for sort of like a mid-range mid option, and it's important to use every once in a while because of the limited range of down forward that we talked about earlier. But yeah, the first 2 hits are a natural combo, and then the string continues like that, but don't worry about it because it's not useful or anything. Yeah, the first hit, the down forward 1 by itself, is safe, whereas the down forward 1-2, so the 2 extension right here, is punishable. I think it's -13, so yeah, that's important to know. So you might not always want to finish the string when you're not confident that it's going to hit. Next we can talk about back 2. It's another fastest mid. This is also 15 frames. Note, by the way, that if you're in a situation where you know you're going to be able to get a 15 frame hit, use this because it's going to lead to a lot more damage. But if you're just poking at your opponent, you can't do that because it's launch punishable, right? So back 2 is good. It's 15 frames. It's got this. Let's have a look here at the frame data. Yeah, so back to 1, these 2 hits are natural. The second hit is a high, but it is natural. That's going to give you 26, which is decent. And then the extension is 1+2. This is a main combo tool for the character. And the 1+2 is actually -11, which is not that bad. I would have actually expected this move to be more punishable, because you can see the string is actually delayable, meaning that you can use this to poke at your opponent, and then you can delay the final hit, and you can actually, it's pretty powerful. Let's allow it to hit once and see. Yeah, you can see that last hit, it tacks on like a whole 20 damage and gives you a knockdown and everything. Even gives you a wall splat at the wall, so that's potentially very powerful. It's one of those, you know, am I going to finish with the string kind of mix-up options. And yeah, I would expect this to be more punishable than 11, but it's only 11, meaning that, you know, you're going to eat jabs most of the time, which is not that bad at all. So I actually think this string is very solid. It also has huge combo applications, but we're going to talk about that later. Alright, next let's talk about back 1. Back 1 is one of Kuma's most important moves. Again, this move is absolutely fantastic. It's his main power crush option. You can see that the range is exceptional. It's very, very long range. It does high damage at 27, which is super high for a single hit like this. And then really the most important thing about the move, well, let's mention first of all that this is another option you have, that wall splats. See that? It wall splats for huge damage, and if you've watched any of my gameplay footage where I play Miguel, you know that I derive a lot of damage from scoring wall splats with power crush moves, with armor moves, namely back 4 with Miguel. It's a very important thing that I like to do. I do the same thing with, you know, back 1+2 with Chloe. Not specifically for wall splats, but I really like armor moves that are solid, that can be abused to go through things, and Kuma has an amazing options in the shape of this move, and I think it's super good. But yeah, the most important thing that you need to know about this move, we're going to talk about now. If you go back to mid-screen here, is that pressing 3+4 is going to allow you to go into hunting stance. Hunting stance is really the most important strategy in the way that Kuma is able to create mix-ups, and so it's an extremely important stance to be able to access. And so one of the main ways you access this is that you do this move. You know, you get a powerful knockdown if you hit with it and armor through, but you can also, even if you get blocked, press 3+4 and go into hunting, and then you can do all kinds of things from hunting. So this move is super important. It's useful when you need a power crush. It's useful when you need a wall splat. It's useful when you need a long range, you know, mid. It's useful for whiff punishment in that sense, and it's useful when you need to access hunting stance. So very good and important move overall. Just be aware that the move is punishable. So you can't abuse it too much on an opponent who is aware of how to punish it. But like I said, because you can access hunting stance right after here, people are going to be very cautious when it comes to blocking it, because if their favorite like punishment option, you know, for a move like this happens to be a high, and they apply that high, then you just launch them from hunting stance, because you're going to go under that high. Hunting stance, you know, crushes highs. So this is a very important move overall, and I think it's absolutely fantastic, and it's another one of those moves that just really makes me interested in exploring the character more, because I think this might be super useful in a lot of cases. And like I said, my play style, I like to apply a lot of fast mid pokes to, you know, establish reads, play defensively with mid pokes, and then try and get reads and apply hop kicks. And then I love when I'm at frame disadvantage to apply armor moves, because it's a good way to punish people who are too aggressive, and you run into a lot of aggression online. You know, the main play style of the online player tends to be hyper aggressive, and so that's a very good tool for that. But that's a digression. Okay, so that's great. I think that's really it for like your main close-up package when it comes to like poke. So you're not super generic, and you're not very like kitted out in terms of tools, but you've got a fast mid in terms of your down forward 4, which is good, and then you've got some of these other like back to down forward 1 2. You've got a couple of things you can do, right? And then your main jab string, I would say, is you got 2 and then you got 2 1, and that's good stuff. So not too bad. But let's talk a little bit about being spaced out with Kuma and trying to come in with offense. You've got a generic slash kick, which is weird because it has like really tiny legs and it's really slow, but it's going to do normal slash kick things. It's a mid, it's going to give you frame advantage and everything, so that's good. But you have a better option that I want to talk about, and it's while running 1+2. While running 1+2 does 30 damage, which is huge. Very, very big hit, and let's look at the frame data here. Yeah, this is also going to give you plus frames on hit. It's listed on RB Norway as +2 to +7, which is a very wide range, and this is probably one of those cases where it just completely depends on what range your opponent blocks the move at, right? So depending on, because it has an extended hitbox, as you can see, so depending on what range the move gets blocked at, it's going to I can't even get it out because he runs so slow. There we go. So yeah, you can't really, unless you're very familiar with the range, know exactly what kind of advantage you're getting, but you're always plus if the move gets blocked, and that's important to know. And then another really important thing about the move is that this is another one of your main options for accessing hunting stance by pressing 3+4 after the move. So this is another main option for getting into hunting. And it's when you're in like a spaced out position with Kuma, this is the main thing you're trying to do a lot of the time. You're trying to get a while running 1+2 in there, because if it hits, you get a massive knockdown. If it gets blocked, you're at advantage, and you have the option of going into hunting. So very, very good. It's like a win-win if you're able to get the move out, but you got to be careful because it's slowish and so on. But a very, very good move. And then yeah, when you're out here as well, because you have like long range stuff like your down 4-2-1, you can do a lot of good whiff punishing. So even though your movement isn't super good, backdashing a lot with Kuma is important, and so you should practice that as well. And then another option that I want to talk about here, which I think is a fantastic addition to Kuma that he got, I think it's completely new for this game, is back 4-2. This move is really good. This is a super good move for a lot of reasons. So let's talk about it. Back 4-2. It's a 16 frame launcher, so it's fast. It can be used as a block punisher, which is good. It's got amazing range. It is high, however, but then it's also safe on block, which is very, very important. I mean, you can apply this pretty safely as long as you're not getting ducked, but because it's so safe, it's not like, so fast, it's not like any opponent's going to be able to reactively duck to it, so unless you're doing it against opponents who are already ducking, it's very likely to get punished in any kind of way. And when you do get a hit with it, you can run up and combo for good damage. So this is, I think you do, will something like this work maybe? Yeah, so you can get 60 damage right there. You might be able to get more, but that's a solid combo off of a very powerful whiff punishing tool. And so you can use this for keep out, and you can use it for whiff punishment, and it's super, super solid, and it's not punishable at all as long as you're not getting ducked. So I really like to recommend this move, and I think it's similar in a way to like 4-2 from Gigas. Gigas needs to counter it for the launch, but he sort of sits out here and fishes with this big high swinging arm looking for that huge hit. So that's similar to Kuma, but the move is fantastic, and it's also one of his best spin moves in some of his combos, and I'm going to show you how to use that in combos later. Okay, let's talk about down forward 1+2. Down forward 1+2 is such a funny move. It's huge, it's got massive range, and it's a homing mid. So you can see Kuma like runs in, and then he hits you with this like a huge hit. It's 32 damage on a single hit, which is mid, unduckable, and it's homing, so they can't get away from this. He's just gonna run in and absolutely destroy you. And the move is safe. This is another case where the frame data varies on the range of the hit because of the long active hitbox. It's listed as -4 to -7, but it means that no matter at what range it gets blocked, it's never punishable, meaning that as long as this move does not get interrupted somehow because of how slow it is. I think it comes out at something like, is it 24 frames? Yeah, it's a 24 frame move, so it can be interrupted, but as long as that doesn't happen, it is a massive long range mid and homing move that's going to be great in so many cases. A powerful spin move that he has that is actually used in some combos, but this is very, very powerful when you need that long range big mid for like a huge whiff punish, or maybe like you get a spin move or some kind of awkward wall splat at range, and then you can run in with this and get massive damage in a single hit. So I actually really like this move, and a lot of people who don't know about the safety of the move will attempt to punish it because of how big it looks, and then you can block punish their failed punish. But that's mainly something that's going to happen on low ranks, obviously. But yeah, another great move for Kuma. Okay, let's talk a little bit about forward 1+2 and then go into low. So forward 1+2 is another whiff punisher. It's got good range. It's slow-ish. It comes out at 17. And you need to combo off of this move in very specific ways because it doesn't lead to actual combos. It's kind of like, down forward, like forward 1+2 from Gigas, for example, where you need to do like an improvised pickup combo, but it does work, and it's decent. So you have this option as well. And this is, however, punishable at -12, so just be aware of that. Okay. Now I want to talk a little bit about lows. We need to wrap that up pretty quickly because we need to talk a lot about hunting stance, obviously, before we talk about combos. So I'm just going to give you a couple of lows here, but you have pretty good lows actually. For low pokes, my main recommendation is down back 2. This is one of the best low pokes ever. It's super, super good. It's got high crush properties. It's got extreme range, as you can see, especially if you're not at an angle to the opponent. You can see that the tip range is somewhere like 2 full back dashes out. This is very, very powerful. It's going to go under a lot of stuff. It's going to surprise the opponent with how much range it has. It's very good. It comes out at 18 frames, meaning that it is completely unseeable, if a little bit on the slow side for a low poke, but that's to expect when you have great range like this. And then you're at minus, I think, I haven't listed it here, but I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's -13. So, it's a premium low poke and an extremely good move. And then this is also a move that goes into hunting, which is very, very important. So when you need to access hunting stance on the fly, this is one of your main options, and then you can start mixing up from hunting stance. So what a good low. It's an amazing low in so many cases. I mean, it's a low crush, it's a long range harassment tool, it's a good tool, one of your main like close-up tools for accessing hunting, and yeah, just an amazing low poke overall. And then you also have down back 3 if you want a fast low poke that's going to allow you to remain standing, so you don't have to go into high crush and have to recover in full crouch. You can just use this to tack on damage. It's basically that thing that he has at the end of his 2-1-3. But just naked out of no string whatsoever. So that's down back 3. This is also 18 frames. But yeah, so yeah, completely unseeable. But these are like your main 2 low pokes, and they're both very good. And then, Kuma has a snake edge. This snake edge is listed as being, I think, 28 impact frames, which is actually slower than I thought. This actually looks a lot faster than other snake edges, and it's much, much more difficult to block than a normal snake edge from a character like Dragunov, in my opinion. I actually think that this is very good, and it actually hits good players a lot of the time too. So I think, snake edges, people have a lot of opinions on them. I do as well, but I think Kuma's is actually one of the more usable ones in the game. It doesn't have as short range as you might think at all. It can hit from like out here, as you can see. And a very unique thing about this, if you listen to Kumo when he does it, it's the silent snake edge. And I think that might be the only one in the game. As far as I know, it's the only snake edge, the only low launching, low sweep that is actually going to allow you to launch without any kind of audio cue. And that might be a big reason for why it's difficult to punish for a lot of people, even for good people, because especially at a high level, people listen a lot to moves and they listen a lot to lows to be able to block them on reaction. You know, he does a roar sometimes, but that's just a generic attack sound that Kuma can do off of a lot of. But like you saw right there, he didn't. I mean, he made no sound whatsoever, and that's very, very unique, and it makes this move powerful. And it means that when Kuma is up close like this, he actually has access to powerful mix-ups because people are going to be scared of this low. And then if you want to combo off it, I'm going to show you later, but Kuma has this great while standing 3, which is another powerful homing mid that he has. Very cool move to just have such a powerful knockdown homing mid from while standing. Potentially very powerful if you know, you're creating mix-ups in full crouch or something. And then you can just do that because you recover in full crouch, and then you basically have your combo. It's 34 damage, the combo has already started off, and then you just run up and you do this, and then you have solid combo damage. So potentially very good. And then the last low I'm going to mention is up 1+2. This is harder to react to than it looks like, because Kuma has, you know, moves where he jumps through the air and, you know, running 1+2 and all that kind of stuff. It's unique to have like a low that jumps up in the air and then hits power with a powerful low, which is one of the reasons that Eliza's snakeage can be difficult to punish, because, you know, she jumps up and then launches you low. But the best thing about this move is you do that, and then you're in hunting stance, meaning that, you know, your opponent can't just duck down and, you know, assume that the low is going to come out, because if you press 3+4, you just cancel into hunting, and then, you know, if they're ducking, you can, you know, hit them with mids. So potentially very good as well. And this is like a, yeah, it's a Jedi mind trick basically, but it's a solid low, and it's good for Oki, which is something I should mention, because if you're in a situation where your opponent's knocked down and you think they might want to try and get up using, you know, generic get up 3 and things, this is going to jump over that and then hit them, you know, punish that effectively, or crush and punish it. But it's also going to hit the opponent if they stay down on the ground and they remain grounded, and that's also the way to correctly apply, you know, Harrier 3 from Katarina. It's one of the things that makes that move very, very useful if you apply it in the correct, like, Oki situation, because if you don't, it's terrible. But yeah, so that's a solid move as well, and another way to access hunting. That's really all I'm going to give you for lows, but it's a good package, and I think, you know, mainly down back 2 is extremely solid. So there you go. Now we need to talk about hunting stance, so we can get that out of the way before we talk about combos. So hunting stance is an extremely unique stance for Kuma. It is manually accessed by pressing 3+4 like this, and he's going to go into this basically like the way you would normally expect a bear to actually, you know, look. Walking on all fours like this. You can press forward to just walk forward normally, and you can press back to walk back like this, and you can cancel the stance by pressing down and back, and you can recover into crouch like that if you hold down back, or just press down back once and he's going to recover back into his normal stance. That's the best way to cancel the stance, and you have the option, like I said, to do that into crouch if you want to block those or something, which is very important. So that's good. And hunting stance is a mix-up stance, and it's one of the reasons the character is considered kind of like a mix-up character, because a lot of the time what you're trying to do, if you're not playing that defensive playstyle with Kuma, where you're trying to, you know, space your opponent out, hit them with, you know, back 4-2, hit them with down 4-2-1, hit them with forward 1+2, and doing that kind of thing, you're actually trying to use moves like the moves I've mentioned, and that's why I was careful to mention them first. Down back 2, back 1, while running 1+2, you're using these moves to try and go into hunting stance, and then you're trying to mix your opponent up from hunting stance. If the opponent is not experienced when it comes to dealing properly with hunting stance, this stance is going to absolutely wreck them. And if you can learn how to use it effectively, playing at low ranks is going to become very easy, because people who don't know how to deal with this are just going to get absolutely destroyed. It's kind of similar to Eddie. It's kind of similar to Xiao Yu, and you know, Xiao Yu, obviously this stance is not as good as AOP, but Xiao Yu is one of the strongest characters in the game, specifically because she has a stance that is at least similar to this, and that should tip you off to the fact that this is a very useful stance. But I've mentioned the main transitions. The manual transition is 1+2, and then when you're down here, you have a lot of cool options, right? So the stance is kind of big, but we're just going to go through the most useful things that you can do. First thing I could mention is back is going to roll backwards, and back forward is going to roll forward. And then you have a couple of moves that are kind of niche out of the roll. But if you press 3+4 during the roll, Kuma actually recovers back into hunting. So that's kind of important. That's an option that you have. Okay, hunting 1-2 is one of your main lows for your mix-up from this stance. It's fast. It does 18 damage. Let's see. It's 12 frames, so it's almost like a jab string out of for a low. It's kind of unique. It's -24 on block, which might sound terrible, but you need to be aware that when we're talking about hunting stance, getting like a -24 frame move blocked from here is not like getting, a snakeage blocked or anything, because when that happens, you're definitely going to get a while standing launched. But it is not straightforward at all to punish Kuma when he's in hunting stance, because moves are it's almost like they're gonna float him, right? So punishing this correctly is difficult, and if the opponent doesn't know how to do it, then you're actually going to get away with it a lot of times. So don't worry too much about the fact that 2-1 is -24. And then if I do an anti-Kuma tutorial at some point, I'm going to talk about how to deal with playing against hunting bear stance, but that's not something that I think we have time for in this video. Okay, so next you have 2. This is a slower low. This is 21, but it's only -15, so it's less punishable. It gives you a solid knockdown and then gives you a good mix-up potential. So this is another solid low, one of your main lows in your hunting stance mix-ups. So basically the mix-up option for lows you have is you've got 2 and you've got 1-2, and they're both good options. 2 when you want to kind of like continue your offense, and then 1-2 when you want to continue your offense, and then 2 when you want to knock down. But they're both good options, and they're both non-reactable lows. I think maybe you can conceivably see this thing if you're super crisp and you're offline, because it's at 21, which is the golden frame, like the break point in terms of that. But yeah, it's not going to get seen if you're just playing normally. So next you've got 3+4. Hunting 3+4 is another power crush move, and that's super cool. Because you can, if your opponent is trying to like hit you out of hunting with mids, you can power through one of those mids and hit them with this extremely long range. It's really good range. Powerful mid. He just runs up and hits you with a headbutt. It's a really cool move. It's underexplored. You don't see it all that much at all. But I think this move might actually have a lot of hidden potential. So it's a move that I would like to start using a lot if I start playing Kuma. And it's also another power crush option that you have that is going to yield you a wall splat. So Kuma actually has 2 armor moves, one from his mix-up stance and one from just his normal stance, that are going to allow him to a wall splat with armor, and that's so powerful. It really cannot be underestimated, and you get a real wall splat combo if you hit with that for good damage. So it's very, very powerful, but it's not used all that much. So yeah, probably a hidden gem in the moveset of Kuma, this move. That is, however, not your main mid when it comes to mixing up from hunting stance. The main mid that you have is, if we leave the wall here, down 1+2. So this is your main mid option that you're going to mix up with these 2 moves, right? So it's a long range, very powerful mid. It's going to stagger the opponent heavily, and it's very, very important. So yeah, be aware of this move and mix it up with your lows, and then you've basically learned how to create basic mix-ups out of hunting stance. But then if you're playing against people who know how to deal with the stance in a generic way, you need to start doing other things as well, right? But that's your mid most of the time, and these are your lows. And so you transition into the stance with something like back 1, and then you try and apply this mix-up on your opponent. If you get a hit, you can continue the mix-up string, and then when you get blocked, usually what you want to do is you just want to cancel back out and you want to start blocking. And that's a basic sort of strategy with Kuma that is going to get you really, really far with the character. But another couple of options that you have out of hunting is you've got down for 1-1, an extremely powerful mid string. It's natural, as you can see, it does massive damage. So this is another option you can use for a mid mix-up out of the stance. very powerful. And I'm just gonna check something here real quick. I should have done this before, but it's just something that came up right now, so I'm just gonna check it quickly. Yeah, okay. I think this might actually be a real combo. So down 1+2 on counter hit into hunting down for 1/1. I think that might actually be a real combo. It looks like it. Yeah, because he has second all guard. That's just makes this move even more powerful. But yeah, down for 1/1 is a great string. The second hit is high, so be aware of that. But if it's going to hit, then it's going to hit for massive damage. It is going to wall splat, so it's another massive wall splat option for Kuma at the wall from hunting stance. As you can see here, just with this generic wall combo, that's 70 damage, which is huge. And this move also happens to be safe on block. Hunting down for 1/1, that is, which is massive, right? This is so good. So a great mid from hunting stance, and it's another option you have maybe for your mid mix-up along with this. So that's very good. You've got down 4/2 for when you need to whiff punish from the stance, or when the stance crushes any kind of high. This is how you launch your opponent mainly from the stance, and it's very, very good. It's similar kind of to like his while standing too, right? But that's a great option. It also works as a combo ender in some cases. Super good move as well. I think it's 15 frames but minus 17 on block. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think that's true, which means that you can't get it blocked obviously, so use it for a whiff punisher or when you've gone under something. And then the last option that I want to mention from hunting stances, you've got, well, two options really. You've got forward 1+2, which is a throw. It's very slow for a throw. It's slower than normal throws, and it only gives 30 damage, but it puts you in a good oak situation, which is cool. But you've got a throw option here. You can throw it in every once in a while to confuse your opponent, and then when you're very close to your opponent, and only when you're close to them, you can do 1+2, and you get this weirdish combo. It's a high damage launcher, so you can do that. And with moves that what Kuma has when he bounces his opponent like this behind him, he has a couple. Be aware that the bounce actually does damage. So for example, I can do this and then I can spin my opponent conceivably before they hit the ground, but that's going to yield me less damage than if I let the opponent bounce first, and I can get like 64 damage there. Might be able to get more, but that's another option that you have. But if you want to launch from hunting, I say use this, because I think it's just, you know, less unorthodox and more, you know, easy to just get a solid combo off of. You can get wall carry and stuff off of that. So yeah, I know I rushed through it a little bit, but we need to get to combos quite soon if we're going to be able to get this within the hour. So I glossed over some stuff, but just be aware that, you know, Kuma, he can play defensively and he has great whiff punishment. He has some really good options from a spaced out position with his like running 1+2, and then when he's used running 1+2, back 1, up 1+2 and down back 2 as his main options, he likes to go into hunting stance, and then he's applying, you know, a main mix up with lows like 2 and 1/2, and mids like down 1+2 and down for 1/1, and that's your main stuff here. Oh, I forgot one move that I want to mention as well. Back 1+2 1+2 is a very high damage natural low string. This is potentially very powerful. I think you can get, yeah, for a low mix-up, if you want to go a little bit more balls to the wall, you can use this, and it's going to give you great damage. It's slow, obviously, but yeah, I think the move is potentially very good. So that's like that's the more powerful option that you have, similar to like how you would use maybe full crouch down forward 3 from Leo, full crouch down forward 4 from Miguel, when you want that when you want to gamble on a big low from hunting stance. You can use this, but it's very good damage. I think this actually breaks walls and stuff, and you can do crazy stuff with it when you get a little bit more advanced with the character as well, so that's very cool. And then one more thing I need to mention about hunting stance is if you press 3 or 4, you can side roll into face up, feet away, and then that's good if you want to stall for time. And Kuma also happens to have a unique move when he's grounded in this position, which is 1+2, which is a good mid, so that's another thing you can use to like mess with your opponent. And you can go into this and then you can do like get up 3 and attempt to launch them, or do this and then you do get up 4, or you can, you know, lie down and harass them with this. So you have an option to access like grounded from hunting, and like I said, if you have a massive life lead and the clock is running out, do this and then like troll your opponent with stuff like rolling around on the ground and doing 1+2, and then you can win by timing your opponent out, which is a cool strategy as well. Alright, so let's show you some Kuma combos. I'm gonna speed up a little bit here because we're a little bit strapped for time, but one thing I'll mention before we go into it is that you have this option here for a good throw. That's 50 damage, and it's basically giant swing input, so it's his version of the overkill throw from Gigas. Basically, you do half circle back forward 1+2, and that's one of your best throws. It does massive damage, so when you want to do a throw mix-up, or you want to, like, you know, apply a powerful throw, that's what I recommend you use. So I just wanted to show that quickly before we go into combos. So we're going to start with down forward 2-1 here. Down forward 2-1, and I'm going to show you a couple of options. The easiest option that I think you should start out with if you're new to the character is you can do this. That gives you 57 damage. It's got some wall carry. It's not super powerful or anything, but it works, and it has the wall carry. So it's you launch, you do down forward 3-2, you run up and do back 2-1, 1+2, and that's a very generic option. Kuma has a hop kick. We haven't talked about it because I don't like it, but it is good if you need to launch your opponent crushing a low. It's not like this is faster and better in almost all situations. This has stumpy range, and it really doesn't lead to good damage whatsoever, but I'll just mention that you can do any combo you can do off of this works off of the hop kick as well. And then I'm going to show you some better combo options than the one I just showed you. So one thing that I like to do off of this launcher is I do this. That gives you 62, which is better, and also has some wall carry. So what I did is basically I launch, I do back 4-2, which is this fast spin move. Then I run up and do back 2-1. I press 3+4 to access hunting stance, and then I do down forward 1-1 for the ender, which is massive damage. So that's good. And then you have a max damage option that I see good people use when they don't want the wall, they just want damage. Like the best damage option I think you have off of his generic launchers. It's a little bit hard to do, but I think we're gonna try and get it here and see what happens. Okay. Okay, there we go. So the reason I said that's hard to do, it's not really, but it's that ender. You see, I ended with while running 1+2. You got to be pretty fast to get that out. It's got to be full forward 1+2 pretty quickly, and you got to get used to like the recovery animation of the previous move. But once you're able to do that, it's not hard at all because the rest of the combo is obviously very, very easy. So that's probably your max damage option in the open. It gives you 65, and then that 66, the last point of damage, which is the wall damage. So you launch, you do back to 1, and then on the second back to 1 you transition into hunting, you spin with down for 1-1, and then you do 4-4-4 1+2 for the ender. So that works. Next launcher I want to show you is forward 1+2. I mentioned that this is the combo where you need to improvise a little bit because it's a little bit janky, and the option that people used to use on this, it was believed to be the best option that you had, was this, I think. And gives you 47, which is not very high at all, even though it is very reliable. So it's down back 3, and then down forward 2, and then down forward 2-1. But there's been some development in the Kuma tech, which I think is cool, and you now have a better option that is also very reliable, and I think this is the best damage option you have, and it looks like this. Okay, so that's forward 1+2, down back 2, while standing 4, forward 1+2 again. Very easy to do, 54 damage, so that's solid. And I should mention quickly here that you have a rage drive that allows you to do even more powerful combos off of this move. That was too slow. This is a little bit clutch if you're going to be able to get it with the timing. Yeah, that worked. And then you can get very good damage. So you can get more damage if you have rage, which is something to keep in mind.
Kuma's Rage Drive, by the way, 441+2, is unique in the sense that it will cause this big high powered launcher and it will hit people on the ground. So it's very unique, but I'm not going to talk about tech with this move in this video because I think that's for the more advanced Kuma tutorial if I ever make one of those. But just be aware that when you have Rage, you can get more damage, but for the most part, this is your best option, as far as I know. Alright. Next, we need to talk about 442. 442 is a Heihachi move, and it's a massive launcher that has a lot of pushback, meaning that it's difficult to punish. You can try this out on your opponent, and if they don't know how to punish it properly with their character, then you can basically use it all day, looking for these massive launches, which is very good. And then if they do know how to punish it, which is kind of rare, then you gotta chill a little bit. But it's massive, obviously. It's got high crush as well, so you can like try and get in and under stuff with it and then get this big launch. And so the combo you can do off of this, I'm going to show you a couple of options. You can do this, which is just a very generic option. That was launch, up forward 1+2, spin with down forward 3-2, and then run up and do the generic ender back 2-1, 1+2. I think what I would do if I was using this move is, I think this will work. Let's try, yeah, something like that will work probably. Yeah, that should work. If I just run up quicker. Yeah, so that's 83, that was pretty solid. But what I did basically is that I launch, I do the up forward 1+2, I then do back 2-1, I transition into hunting, I do the down forward 1-1 for the spin, hunting down forward 1-1 that is, and then you can do whatever ender you want. You can do a running 1+2. I wanted the wall carry there to see if I could get it, so I used a down forward 2-1. But yeah, you can use whatever you prefer there, and that's another solid option off of that launcher. But I mean, you can do a lot of stuff after this because the launcher is so massive. You can use that, and then you've got 55, and then whatever ender you do, like the damage is going to be solid, right? Okay, see, that's like a 4-hit combo for 67 right there. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's a good launcher. I think the last launcher I just want to mention quickly. I mean, while standing 2, you can do the same stuff we've mentioned already, which is important to know, obviously. You've got a Matterhorn. You've got Lily's Matterhorn with Kumo, which is hilarious. And when you hit with that, launch punishable, high crush launcher. So that's all you need to know about that move. And then you can do down forward 1+2 to spin after that, and you can get all kinds of powerful enders. But I think that's it for like main combo game with the character. So yeah, yeah, forward 1-1-1. If we allow that to hit on counter here, you just do back 2-1, back 2-1, 1+2. So let's show you a quick option for wall damage before we wrap this up. Let's go to the wall here. So I mentioned earlier, you've got great wall spot options. You've got back 1, you've got forward 2-1, you've got down 1+2, you've got hunting 3+4, you've got while standing 1-1, you've got hunting down forward 1-1. So you've got all these powerful options, none of which are like particularly safe or anything. That one is safe, however, so that's back forward 2. So a lot of good options. And then basically what you want to do, the one option that works for Kuma at the wall, is you do back 2-1, down 1+2, back 2-1, down 1+2. That always works off of all of these moves, and it does great damage. So that's basically the option. And then you can do some other stuff like you can do this, but it's not as good. But yeah, I think that's going to be it for my Kuma tutorial. I'm sorry we had to rush a little bit at the end. I wish I had more time with these, but I got to keep them under 1 hour for now. I hope it was useful, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you want to see next. And yeah, thank you so much. I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.